Let's start off from the courts. It's a trial many Ghanaians look forward to, but those directly connected to the case have already called for a speedy trial. I'm talking about the case of 14 persons accused of murdering Major Maxwell Mahama. The soldier was lynched by a mob at the central regional town of Dintra-Boise. The case on Thursday suffered an adjournment as 8 persons proposed to join the jury were rejected by the accused persons. There's more in the following report.
14 persons were brought into the court by officials of the Judicial Service to be selected to form part of the jury, with each accused person having the option of rejecting a nominee 3 times without offering any explanation. It came as no surprise when 8 persons were rejected. After about 45 minutes of proceedings, 6 persons had been selected, 1 short of the required 7. This comprised 4 gentlemen and 2 ladies. One of the defense lawyers, Augustine Obo, asked that the court ensures that those brought for nomination on Monday include females. Chief State Attorney Evelyn Kilson said the plea was not necessary as the requirement for one to serve as a juror was clearly spelled out in the law books.
Now, former Shraj boss Justice Emil Short says it will be very difficult to abolish the death penalty in our laws. His comment comes as Amnesty International called on government to outlaw the death penalty by the end of next year. Speaking at the launch of the 2017 Global Death Penalty Report by Amnesty International, Justice Short mentioned that the criminal justice system in Ghana is not perfect and will only be workable if the country holds a referendum to abolish the death penalty rather than let government alone decide. Ifwa Evans Chinnery reports.
The Death Sentence and Executions Report, which Amnesty International publishes every year, highlights the plight of people put on death penalty by their government and seeks ways of organizing a conscious effort to abolish death penalty in the world. The report covers the judicial use of the death penalty from January to December 2017. Launching its 2017 Global Death Penalty Report, Amnesty International said there are better ways of punishing people than killing them. But former Shraj boss Emil Short says that would be a difficult thing to do.
The death penalty, which is in our constitution, the only way it can be abolished is it is an entrenched provision of the constitution. And therefore, its abolition would have to be, that provision, being an entrenched provision, we'll have to go to a referendum. Now, if the constitutional amendment process is revived and that the amendment of that provision is submitted to a referendum for amendment, 40% of those entitled to vote have to vote. Listen to this carefully. Under our Constitution, for that provision to be amended, 40% of those entitled to vote have to vote, and then 75% of those who voted have to have voted in favor of abolition or of amendment of that provision. I hope you understand what I'm saying. In other words, it's not for the president to say, I have abolished the death penalty. It's a constitutional matter.
The last execution in Ghana in 1993 employed a firing squad. Since then, some prisoners have been put on death row. Joy News' Seth Kwame Boateng shared his experience at one of the prisons.
The lady you mentioned is only 20 years old, and she's been sentenced to death. When you listen to her story, you are persuaded to push for death penalty to be abolished. She was fighting with a friend. She claims that the friend stabbed her, and she showed me the wound, the scar. She also took the knife, stabbed her back, but she died. She was arrested, the case, she was tried. The day she was sentenced, no family member was even there. So the father had gone to the Tamale prisons to deliver food, to give her food. He got there and he was told, your wife, your daughter has been sentenced to death. So some of the cases, probably if they have had lawyers, the verdict would have been different. But here's the case, because of poverty, they can't contract lawyers. I think this is the reason we must all be concerned, because it can happen to you.
According to Amnesty International's report, 21,919 people were known to be on death row at the end of 2017 around the world. Out of this number, 160 are in Ghana. The International Human Rights Group says they have developed a strategy to convince people out there to change their mindsets on death penalties.
The first is that we will need to do some mobilization, talking to key stakeholders. We need to engage with society. It is important that we recognize as society we have some deficit in terms of the knowledge that people hold, the reasons why people believe in the death penalty. And we need to explain to people the deficits related to that kind of knowledge, why it is important, why other societies have removed it, and why we should also remove it, because we sincerely believe that the political leaders know, the academics know, important people in Ghanaian society know, people in the media have been exposed, and they do know that the death penalty doesn't solve any problem. If you look at Europe, they don't have death penalty. Has crime increased? Look at the societies where they have death penalty. Crime is rather on the increase. We have had death penalty in Ghana for so many years, and crime hasn't decreased. So maybe a lot of education needs to be done.
Amnesty International opposes the death penalty in all cases without exception, regardless of the nature of circumstances of the crime. Ifwa Evans-Chinui for Joy News.
Now, President Akufo-Addo has suspended Deputy Sports Minister Pius Enam Hadije following investigations into a visa racketeering scandal which has marred Ghana's image at the ongoing Commonwealth Games in Australia. It comes after more than 65 members of Ghana's contingent were deported over visa fraud. Reports say the individuals were flagged by the Australian immigration officials after they struggled to explain the purpose for which they were traveling to that country. They are said to have been issued with the visa after they claimed they were journalists and allegedly got the support of the ministry to apply for the visas. Well, earlier Thursday, President Akufo-Addo summoned the minister at a meeting at the Jubilee House where he suspended the deputy minister. Here is Director of Communications at the Presidency, Eugene Ahin, confirming the decision by the President to Joy News.
Yes, still ongoing. I think the President has made it clear to the investigative bodies that I believe this is not a matter that can go on forever. This is a matter that has to be as quickly as possible and timelessly brought to a conclusion. So at least it's requested that as quickly as possible this matter be quickly but efficiently investigated, and subsequent final reports be brought to him for whatever action he has to take on the matter for him to be able to take it. I wouldn't go as far as saying indicted them. I wouldn't be categorical. Just to say that we know before the conduct of the games, the substantive Minister for Youth and Sports constituted an international games committee to oversee Ghana's participation in the games. Now, this committee was represented by members from the Ministry of Youth and Sports, the National Sports Authority, the Ghana Olympic Committee, as well as the National Federation that registered to participate in the Commonwealth Games. Now, this particular International Games Committee was chaired by the Deputy Minister for Youth and Sport, that's Pius Hadije. So whatever transpired with regards to our preparations, issues to deal with, acquisition of visas for members of the team. I mean, everything surrounding those games had to do fell under the direct review of the Deputy Minister for Youth and Sports, also the chairperson of that committee. So, be it as it may, the report that has been brought to him, the President believes that at least since he was the chairperson, and also you had the Director General or the Acting Director General of the National Sports Authority also being part of that particular committee, then it was important that as per the reports or as per the findings in the preliminary investigation that have been carried out so far, those two gentlemen step aside for investigations to continue. So I wouldn't go as far as saying that the report or the preliminary investigations in that I wouldn't go as far as saying that.
Well, the Acting Director General of the National Sports Authority, Robert Safo-Mensah, has also been reacting to his suspension. He spoke to my colleague Evans Mensah on Top Story. He says he's confident he will be vindicated after the investigations.
As I'm concerned, I don't have any problem at all. I believe I'm innocent.
When you say you believe you're innocent, it must have been something that you know. What is that?
No, I don't want to preempt the investigation. But I'm saying that concerning the role that I needed to play as Director General of the National Sports Authority, concerning Ghana's participation in the Commonwealth Games, I play my role fairly and professionally, and I didn't do anything untoward. That is how come I think I'm innocent.
Do you accept, as they always say as leaders, ultimate responsibility, seeing that it's a fact that 60 Ghanaians were arrested because of what we now have become to know of visa issues, visa fraud and racketeering?
As far as participation of Team Ghana is concerned in these international games, there are various key stakeholders. And the rules of each key stakeholder is clearly spelled out. So when it comes to all these issues, I think before the investigation committee, me as a Director General of National Sports Authority and my institution, we had our clear role. And I think we played our part clearly in ensuring that.
What was the role? I guess we need to understand. What was the role of the Sports Authority in these games?
Largely, the Sports Authority was part of the World Planning Committee, that's the International Games Committee, which was chaired by the Deputy Minister, and I deputized him. And then when the size of Team Ghana is determined, it was the role of the National Sports Authority to see to the preparation of the team well and far advanced before the event, in terms of taking the team in terms of general kitting and equipment and discipline-specific kits were our role, airlifting Ghana to Australia and bringing them back, and then the pre-game preparation that the International Games Committee planned for Australia was also our remit in terms of accommodation, feeding, transportation, also getting them the right facilities to train with. All those were our role, and we played our role very well.
Finally, you are on suspension now, and from what we hear, it takes immediate effect. I believe that you've already packed out of the office?
I have. I received information from the president himself in his office by 12 midday, and I made sure that I had packed out of the office.
And finally, but let's quite establish something. From the list of individuals affected by the decision, we have yourself, we have the Ghana Olympic Committee president.
Now, we'll be doing some analysis shortly with my colleague Gary Al-Smith on this and related issues. But before that, let's bring you more details on this particular scandal. According to the communications director at the Ghana Olympic Committee, Charles Osei-Sibe, 5 more officials have been fingered in the scandal. Listen to him as he spoke last Saturday with Nathaniel Atto on the Joy Sports Link.
I feel that there are agents too. There are agents. That's why we want to continue with investigations. You know, we don't want to do anything or say anything to mar the beauty and the essence for which we're in Australia. We just want to concentrate on the games, after which I told you earlier that it is not just these supposed 2 officials from the National Sports Authority who have been fingered. If you read the Graphic Sports story on Friday, said that Ben Nunu Mensah says there are 5 other officials he would want to report to the Minister of Youth and Sports. Now, what I know is that some federation heads have been fingered in this saga, and the GOC will take the appropriate action against them. Like I said, you would get the details of the investigations conducted by the GOC when the games are over. But whoever is involved, we refer them to the appropriate masters or bodies to be responsible for their reprimand.
He also indicated at the time the national security was investigating the matter, but an investigation is also being conducted in Australia, according to the Deputy Australian High Commissioner to Ghana, Glenn Askew.
We are still investigating. And once we are done with the internal investigations, we'll come out, we'll let people know.
So these federations were infiltrated more or less by.
They had agents.
They had agents.
We feel they had agents.
I see.
It's not just about the federation. I'm saying that as far as these games is concerned, there were a lot of agents around. That's why you hear people traveling with officials. Like the guy said, he traveled with officials and nobody helped them when they had issues. That's why issue about journalists have come up. That's why even the contingent list of Team Ghana has become an issue. I feel that there were agents around.
I just want to say something about agents.
Sure.
We don't use agents. I know that from time to time in Ghana there are advertisements, get a visa to Australia through such and such an agent. It is a scam. For your listeners, do not use them. There's only one process to get a visa to Australia, and that is to apply through the Department of Immigration and Border Protection website, or to download the form and lodge it at the Movenpick Hotel where we have a shop front. There are no agents in Ghana. They won't help you get a visa to Australia. Don't waste your money.
Not for any simple travel, not for any sport event, not for any form of travel to Australia. You don't use agents.
In this case, I don't know the full circumstances. Maybe there are agents who had contacts at the Ministry of Sports. I don't know. But for normal travel, there are no agents that will help you get a visa to Australia. We haven't been investigating ourselves. I mean, obviously there's work being done in Australia, but the High Commission is not responsible for investigating this matter, and so we've just been following what's going on. So, yeah, some of it's very new to me.
So why does the Sports Ministry appear to attract so much scandals and controversy? Joining me to do some analysis on this is my colleague Gary Al Smith of our Sports Desk. Hello, Gary.
Hello, Abba.
So this is not the first time a scandal of this proportion has rocked the Sports Ministry. Run us through the various scandals that have rocked the ministry over the years.
Well, the reshuffles and the frequency of these appointments and kicking out started really in 2001. And by 2008, a period of 7 years, we had 8 sports ministers. Between 2009, when the new government came in, until 2015, we had now a record of 15 ministers in 14 years.
That's a huge number.
That's an average of 1 a year, or 1 and change.
Right.
You know, and it's basically because they don't have time to even settle, and mostly football is the cause. So this is actually an anomaly that football is not the cause of all the brouhaha we are hearing, but usually it's either during the African Cup of Nations there's an airlifting of funds and we can't account for how much was spent, or some other project didn't go well, or famously Brazil 2014 and the monetary issues that were involved. So let's have a timeline. Malam Issa, very, very famous, the scandal.
Yes, that was during the Akufo-Addo administration.
Yes, the sports minister then in 2001 was charged with stealing an amount of $46,000, which he was alleged to have hidden behind a flower pot.
Yes.
He said it was never true, but hey, this money was meant to be used to pay the winning bonuses of the national team, football team, during the World Cup qualifying game between Ghana and Sudan in February 2001 in Sudan as well. So that was his lot. And then we went to the very infamous, equally Muntaka scandal, which became known with the Monica Chinchinga. Exactly. Because some kebabs were involved and some cows, which he said they were used to, serve kebabs to people. It was an allegation of financial malfeasance made against this man by a principal accountant at the ministry in June 2009. He was accused of collecting $25,000 but released only $13,000 to the GFA for the payment of protocol. Such vague terms have also contributed to the frequent reshuffles because they say protocol, then Kwesi Nyantakyi came with the infamous coefficient and so on. He resigned his position but was later cleared of any wrongdoing by Shraj, which is why he has still remained an MP for Abu and so on and so forth. Right. Now, Elvis Efriye Ankara, the biggest and the most globally, he had global infamy because of the 2014 World Cup scandal where Ghana airlifted in the full glare of the world. Yes. $3.5 million or so.
They were ridiculed by many people.
Yeah. From Accra to Brasilia. He was also blamed for the poor handling of Ghana's participation in the tournament. And he was said to have...
So he was also accused of receiving a bribe of 280,000
Ghana cedis.
Wow.
Yes. Commission of Inquiry, which was the Jamafe Commission, was set up to look into the matter. Right. He was reassigned, even though the commission strongly said he should be punished and so on and so forth. True. And he was taken to the presidency. It was a feature of the then government that if anybody was found culpable of anything, they put you in the presidency at the Flagstaff House. So, yeah, that was it. And then currently is Pius Enam Hajide, Deputy Minister of Sports. Now, people will ask, why is it that the sports minister has not been?
Exactly.
Yes, because he was in charge. He was the chairman of this entire Ghana Olympic Committee efforts to go there. So the minister put him in charge of the day-to-day operation. So it stands to reason that the buck stops with him and not the minister because he could answer better some of these issues. So
Gary, I mean, you've covered a lot of these scandals over the years. What makes the sports ministry so susceptible to some of these, corrupt acts that we see? I mean, what are the loopholes or the weaknesses of that particular ministry?
Two things before I go directly to the question. Anytime the sports ministers leave, the technocrats or the bureaucrats in the ministry always stay. So the chief director, the head of accounting, the chief servants, they are always there.
They never change.
They never change because they are career civil servants. It's only the people at the top, which suggests that there may be what has come to be known as a mafia of sorts. But the current sports minister said only 2 months ago, actually, that there's no mafia because he has been in power for more than 1 year and nothing has happened. And then this happens as well. But just to briefly explain, mostly it comes as a result of the fact that monies cannot be accounted for when they are given from the sports ministry to one federation or the other. In this case, it's the Ghana Olympic Committee, but more often than not, 95% of the time, it's when the Ghana Football Association and the sports ministry get involved in a tournament, a qualifier, or something involving a national team or other, and we can't account for something. The government of the day decides that this is not good for us. But then the governments themselves are to blame.
How so?
Because they see football as the passion of the nation, and it's an easy way to carry the favor of the people. Right. So the prevailing notion in government, whether it's NDC or MPP, is that no amount is too big to put into football whenever the Black Stars are traveling to a tournament or something to make the people happy. And so they do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there have been suspensions. A probe is ongoing. From your perspective, what are your expectations of this investigations going forward so we don't see a repeat of such incidents?
Well, a lot of my colleague journalists are extremely cynical because the granddaddy of investigations, which was the Commission of Inquiry in 2014, has not been respected, to put it bluntly. So if that one has not seen any results, what are they going to do about these guys? So it's incumbent on the government to show us that this investigation is going to do something special. But they've started well. For the president himself to suspend these two sends a strong signal. Don't forget that he has also recalled the chairman, the boss of the Ghana Olympic Committee from the Games in Australia, and also Honorable KB Ajiman, who is one of the top officials at the National Sports Authority. So far, so good. Let's see whether politics does not get in the way.
All right, many thanks. Gary L. Smith is with our sports desk with that fantastic analysis there. And you will be back with more sports news away from this. Meanwhile, the minority spokesperson on sports, Komla Woyome, has commended the president for taking the action. He's, however, demanding transparent and open investigations into the matter.
Yes, we will commend the president for the swift action. However, it falls short of what the minority is requesting for. For and on behalf of the good people of this country, who would want to know more. The reason being that it is when a full-scale, transparent investigation is conducted into this matter, where all follows the matter in spirit and in real practical sense, the evidence and opportunity given to people who would have various stories and testimonies to give, and same collected probably in the open, and possibly allow all to freely, appreciate the process. I mean, that is exactly what we're looking for, because, again, when it is not done that way, there may be the thought and the thinking that, look, some 1, 2, 3 people probably may end up being scapegoats or will be used to sort of... We are still standing by what we put out there in the 2 communications. One, calling for full-scale independent investigation into the matter. And that, I don't think we want to compromise on.
You're still watching Joy News Prime. You're welcome back. Now, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly has already spent over 900,000 Ghana cedis dredging major drains in the capital. That's according to Mayor of Accra, Mohammed Ejesowa, who's been inspecting work on some drains in the capital. He says the dredging is a major part of the plan to deal with perennial flooding in the capital. There's more in the following report.
The raining season is here, and like every year since 2015, when the impact of the rain left more than 150 killed in the flood and fire disaster, city authorities are working towards minimizing the impact of the rains. Key among measures being taken is dredging of some major drains in the capital, the Kwame Nkrumah Interchange area, Graphic Road, Awudome, Adabraka, Sukura, all fall within flood-prone areas in the capital that needs attention. The mayor says they have voted over 900,000 cedis to do this work.
Different types of desilting. We have primary drains, we have secondary drains, we have tertiary drains, depending on the size of the drains. The smaller drains have been given on a contract for small companies. That is amounted to close to 600,000 Ghana cedis. And working with the Department also of Urban Roads. The bigger drains, this is what we are also doing. That is also, these are the primary drains. It's costing us over 460,000 Ghana cedis just for this particular exercise. We've done same about 2 months ago. So the continuous dredging and the silting of the drains is what is preventing the flood to happen. And it's costing us a lot of money, which shouldn't have. I said that this alone, this what we are doing now, is costing us over 460,000 Ghana cedis just for the tertiary drains. And then the primary drains. Then the smaller drains, which are the tertiary drains, is also costing us over 600,000 Ghana cedis just from January to April.
As part of a long-term plan, government is looking to reconstruct some major storm drains in the capital.
Under the ASDAP project, that is where we want to make sure that the drains are covered, and then you have permanent drains all over the whole of Accra. That budget is not within my purview. It's within the purview of the Ministry of Works and Housing. In the meantime, as a responsible leader within the city, these are the things that we are supposed to do.
Meanwhile, the mayor of Accra is calling for attitudinal change among Ghanaians to support the assembly ridding the city of filth.
Now, users of tramadol are at risk of kidney dysfunction, respiratory problems, seizures, coma, and can even shut down internal organs. 500,000 tablets of tramadol have been seized in soups in parts of the country, but the Food and Drugs Authority says the situation is now at crisis point. In the Ashanti Regional Capital, Kumasi, the authority has referred 21 over-the-counter chemical sellers to the Pharmacy Council for stocking and selling high doses of tramadol. The authority's action is in response to what it says is the abuse of the medicine used to treat moderate to severe pain. There's more in this report.
The drug is supposed to be dispensed with a prescription, but it has now been sold openly. To regulate its sale, the authority has seized over 4,000 tablets beyond the registered dose of 100 milligrams in the Ashanti region. Ashanti Regional Head of the Food and Drugs Authority, Nora Naki-Telabi, says the exercise is to regulate the sale of a drug in the region.
To ensure public safety, FDA officers undertook market surveillance in 84 shops comprising 50 over-the-counter shops and 34 pharmacy shops within the region. Of the 50 OTCs, 21 of them stocked tramadol and other medicines that they are not supposed to stock. The ones they stocked were even above the approved dosages. In Ghana, tramadol is only approved in 50 and 100 milligram doses. What we have found 120 milligram and we have found 225 milligram, which are not approved, which means that they have not been registered for use in our country.
The Pharmacy Council has also hinted of conducting its own investigations so as to sanction those found culpable.
Started from what came through outside, and now we've got to understand that it's the same thing as the tramadol that we have that are registered in Ghana. So we have 50 milligram and 100 milligram that are the registered products in Ghana, but you see these ones as high as 250 milligram dosage and 225 and things like that. And we have intensified our routine inspections, and as at now, as we sit here, our team is out in the field taking another district and trying to go around to see if we could ensure that it is not so available.
The FDA said it is collaborating with other government agencies to man the various borders to close any loose ends to stop the influx of the drug. The FDA says the situation has now reached crisis levels and a national response is required.
Meanwhile, the FDA is assuring Ghanaians of continuous swoops to arrest persons who abuse the drug in the country. Speaking to Joy News is Gifty Ando-Apia, Principal Regulatory Officer of the Sebastian Hoto, stated that the FDA will involve the Ghana Police Service, the Pharmacy Council, and the NCCE to intensify the arrest and ensure checks on the abuse of the drug.
This one is more of a major swoop, an operation, but our routine activities allow us to go onto the market on a daily basis as part of our post-market surveillance activities. Yes, so the big swoops and the operations will be replicated throughout the country as and when we get intelligence from the police as to where we have alarming rates of abuse and quantities. But then our routine activities would continue. And we'll just intensify them because of the crisis at hand. Okay. We are on the field, like he said, prescription drugs are not supposed to be sold around except in pharmacies. And so for it to be around anywhere for the public to access it is very sad. We've realized that the work is not for only FDA, and we cannot do it all alone because we don't have the numbers. That is why we are doing a lot of collaboration now. We are collaborating with Pharmacy Council. They have more men on the ground, and their numbers are more. We are collaborating with the Ghana Police Service. They have more men on the ground, and we are collaborating with the National Commission on Civic Education to intensify the education so that people get to know about the harmful effects.
Now, babies born with hearing impairment and other people with hearing defects in the Central Region can now access care at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital. This follows a donation of audiometer and other emission machines by the Embassy of the Czech Republic through the Less Privileged Ghana Foundation, a Ghanaian-based NGO. The two organizations have also begun training of medical officials at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital into ear specialists to help the hospital detect early stages of hearing impairment and for babies and other persons to avert any possibility of permanent damage. Richard Kwejunyako has more.
Hearing impairment is a serious disability that imposes a heavy social and economic burden on individuals, families, communities and countries. The Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, for instance, had to borrow hearing aids from the Cape Coast School for the Deaf because the hospital had none, a situation hospital authorities say brought a lot of discomforts. The audiometer, acoustic emission, the instrument for screening newborn babies and hearing impaired persons are to enable babies draw primary interventions so they do not progress into full hearing impairments. Head of the ENT department of Olomouc Hospital in the Czech Republic, Dr. Richard Salzman, explains to Joy News what the gesture is about.
There are many ways where we have to start because it's a long process, which is, I would say, there are many steps ahead of us. One thing is that we need to help local doctors to learn the basic and later on to learn the more advanced surgical techniques. That's one thing. Another thing is that we would like to help, parallelly, we would like to help the hospital establish a newborn screening program, which will help us help the community to identify kids with hearing impairment. I mean, in the age of newborns, and we will and slowly we will be creating a database of kids which could be later cochlear implanted, meaning that these kids could later get special device inserted in the ear, which will help them hear. Without the device, they would be deaf for the rest of their lives.
Chief Executive Officer of the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, Dr. Daniel Asari, is delighted medical officials from the hospital would be trained as specialists to help serve their clients better.
If you are hearing impaired, your acquisition of speech is also impaired. And any child below the age of 6 months who is not able to hear, if it's not detected and then corrected, will definitely become deaf and dumb. And if you have a deaf and dumb, then we send them to the school for the deaf. Most people in school for the deaf could have been rehabilitated primarily or secondarily for them to be integrated in the normal school if we had portable audiometer doing assessment and doing screening and then emission machine that we have. Now we're going to go to all the preschools and detect hearing abnormalities, bring them to our listen. If they require hearing aids, we'll give them. And those who, in the event that they may need cochlear implants, we are building on to go to the extent that Cape Coast Teaching Hospital is going to begin cochlear implant surgeries and other ear surgeries from 2020 thereabout.
The Less Privileged Ghana Foundation promises to reduce to a large extent cases of treatable hearing deficiencies and also have the first ever cochlear implant in Ghana by 2020. Richard Kwejunyako, Joy News, Cape Coast.
Now let's talk tech. Imagine watching your favorite TV show or cooking that spicy meal on an electric cooker only for the power to go off. That will definitely be awful. Well, an entrepreneur in his 20s has developed a mobile app with which you can buy prepaid credit any day, anytime. On Tech Thursday today, Joy News' Joseph Akaple spends time with app developer Kane Money, who dropped out of school to pursue his passion.
It's all excitement for many till there's a power outage. In such a situation, people tend to rush to the nearest power vendor. But what if they have closed? Well, I know someone who has had such an experience before.
I come back from Kumasi and I live at Adreganon. So my lights were off around 10 and it was raining heavily. So I had to drive all the way down to American House where and get electricity. When I went there, the woman was closed. So I had to comb the whole of East Legon, and that day I couldn't get electricity. So I went to where the next day. I was like, this is a huge issue. If I have this problem, then maybe others may have this problem. So I told my team that let's look at working on a solution that you can buy electricity directly from your smartphones. So initially it was just a personal idea. Then as time went on, I saw it become a real need that the light can go off on at all times on Sundays. Like it's really a burden. Not talk about the long queues people join to buy electricity and all of that.
The CEO of the app development company recalls how he opted out of school to solve such problems.
We started whilst in school in my dorm room 4 with my co-founder who was at Legon then. A year down the line, we're doing so well, we're making so much money. And as young people who are passionate, who are ambitious, we felt that the only way to do this was to drop out and do it full time. When we dropped out, things were very tough.
How did your parents receive news of you wanting to drop out to follow your passion?
So my parents never agreed to me dropping out. Actually, my parents didn't even know that I had dropped out. I pitched the idea to my dad sometime, and he was crazy about me dropping out and all of that. So I did it subtly before they realized I wasn't coming to school anymore. So I had to now tell them why I had to do this. My mom didn't really believe the whole technology vision, the idea, and was like, this will not work in Ghana, I have to work in Africa. And I had to convince, I had to push you, I had to prove to her that I can be a success, and now they've all bought into the vision.
He takes me through how e-prepaid works.
So currently the app only works for Android smartphones currently, and you have to have an Android phone version of phone and above. It's currently like everybody has that. So you click on, you enter Google, you enter e-prepaid, then it pops up directly there. So you just click on it, then you're able to see the app here. So you're able to view all the reviews that has been written by the current users, all of them giving good reviews. Somebody says it works like magic, it can save their day and all of that. So once you have it, you just open the app directly. It pops up like this. That's when you install. So the first thing you will see is a disclaimer. So the disclaimer states here that this mobile app is a private initiative of origin and is solely developed by us. We are not in partnership with any third party, which is any key distributors in the ECG or any other sort. We are working with a group of over 100 partner vendors who are accredited by ECG to sell. Origin itself doesn't sell electricity. We just facilitate the sale between you and the vendor. So ordinarily, you would have worked with a vendor to go and buy, but we are facilitating that purchase between you and the vendor 24/7 across. So once you have this, you're able to agree to this and sign up, then you're good to go. So it's a utility app. The first thing you see here is you buying. This app works for only smart meters. Smart meters are the current trends of meters that are currently being installed now. Our vision for doing this was that the card meters are currently being faded. So in the next 5-10 years, next 2-3 years, everybody will have a smart meter. So we have to invest in the long term that everybody will be able to use it. Now for you to have a smart meter, you don't need to use a card. So and currently it mostly works for people around Legon, Medina, Delta Ridge, Airport, Accra, Newtown, in those environments. That's for Accra. So you have to enter your 8 or 9 meter ID. So some people have 9 meter ID, some people have 8. So you enter the amount you are buying, 100 cedis. Then you enter the name on the meter. So we can do Joe. So once you enter this information hits our system and verifies the authenticity of what you want to make the purchase through. So it gives you a confirm your purchase. So we as Origin, because we are facilitating you and the vendor, we charge a convenience fee. This convenience fee means that you don't have to walk, drive, or go to the place, and anytime you can make a purchase. So as you can see here, the meter ID is there, the name on the meter is there, and the amount you're buying is there. This amount goes directly to the vendor who is within our network, who will make this transaction happen based on how our system works. Then the convenience fee comes to us, and the total amount is being paid. So once you do that, we are checking for system availability, because there are times the network may be down, it may be up due to how ECG works. So it's checking for system availability. So if the system is up, it will go through, and the system is down, it will return. Then it means the system is up, so then I can go through and make your purchase.
Less than 5 minutes later, the smart meter outside its office beeps as it has been updated. As you can imagine, I don't want to break a sweat when in need of power. Reporting for Joy News, my name is Joseph Akable.
And I'm Marba Kumson. Let's continue with our stories. The Local Government and Rural Development Ministry has begun works towards delivering on the campaign promise of the governing New Patriotic Party to ensure metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives are elected on a partisan basis. A Deputy Minister of the sector, Osei Bonsu-Amoah, announced that, among other things, the Attorney General's department had begun works on a bill which seeks to amend Article 55 of the 1992 Constitution, which bears the election of MMDCEs. The minister was speaking at the consultative forum in the Volta Regional Capital.
The consultation forum brought together activists of the various political parties, civil servants, civil society organizations, among others. The forum was to create awareness and educate stakeholders on their required roles in amending the Constitution, as well as enlightening them on the national roadmap towards the election of MMDCEs. The forum also gave the stakeholders the platform to make inputs and give recommendations which would be collated to guide the successful implementation of the election of MMDCEs. However, Article 55 of the 1992 Constitution bars the election of MMDCEs, hence the need for it to be amended to pave way for the election. A Deputy Local Government and Rural Development Minister, Osei Bonsu-Amoah, who detailed the roadmap, announced a bill would be laid in Parliament by December 2018. He added a referendum on the amendment would be held in September 2019 after the bill is gazetted by Parliament.
Also be in a position to refer it to the Council of State. And the Council of State will have the 30 days to also make their submission or respond to the bill. As the Constitution requires, we will then need 6 months of gazette, which is notification to the whole world. And this is what will be put for the referendum. And to meet the 6 months deadline, we need to make sure that by December this year, the bill will have been sent to Parliament. Once we are able to send the bill to Parliament and it's gazetted for the 6 months, it means that come September 2019, when the EC is ready to do the district level elections, the people of Ghana too will be asked to vote on Article 55(3) as to whether political parties should be allowed to participate in the election of MMDCs. But that will not be the end of the process. The outcome of the elections in September 2019 would then give us the power and authority to continue with other processes towards the elections. And as the President has said, he wants the appointment to be the last appointment that he's making, which will mean that these present MMDCs, most of whom were appointed in 2017, by 2021 will have served 4 years, 1 full term, by which time we are hoping that any other process will lead to elections of MMDCs. So after the referendum, there are several laws and constitutional provisions that we still have to work on. And that will take 2020 for us to work on these constitutional provisions and the laws. So that by the end of 2020, when we have completed the process, which will also then coincide with the general elections, after that process, the way will be open for the election of MMDCs. So that is the process that we are going through. And as I said, after a referendum, we then have to look at the Political Parties Act and make sure that you amend it to conform with the Constitution. We have to look at district level elections acts. We have to look at district level regulations. All these things we have to look at. In addition to certain articles in the Constitution, like 242, 243, 246, 248. All these things will have to be addressed before you can say that you are ready for the election of MMDCs. So this is the process that we're going through. I'm sure when it comes to discussing and questions, if there are any issues, we can address them.
Now, the Akufo-Addo Technical University chapter of the Technical University Teachers Association of Ghana, TUTAG, has suspended teaching duties until the University Council addresses concerns about the undue delay in promotion of staff and the Council's chairman's interference in the day-to-day management of the university. The Technical University teachers have been accusing the chairman of the Council, Professor Samuel Apori, of unilaterally taking decisions at the expense of school management. Vice President of the association, Dr. Jamal Mohammed, says until their concerns are addressed, they will go to the classroom. They will not go to the classroom.
Hello, Chairman. Council will respond to it. We are having a council meeting. And when we finish, we will respond appropriately. Thank you very much. All right, thank you.
It's all watching Joy News Prime. I'm Marba Kumson. And that's how we end Joy News Prime. I'm Marba Kumson. From me and the rest of the team, thank you for joining us. Good night.